Good evening, everyone. On behalf of Sarkari School, I extend a very warm welcome to you all, where the mind is without fear and the head is held high, where knowledge is free. Inspired by Tagore's words, Sarkari School has taken this ambitious initiative to organize today's event, Children in Budget 2024 The Youth Perspective, with the goal of understanding the youth's outlook regarding the policies affecting children in the ruling party's sixth annual budget. Sarkari School is an initiative of the WeCitizens Foundation, which seeks to provide a forum for individuals working in the field of school education, those who, through their dedication and hard work, are improving the future of young generations, and those who, although not affiliated with any government agency or organization, are aiding the marginalized sections of Indian society. As a child welfare and education policy organization, Sarkari School also hopes to provide a forum for young experts to share their perspectives on different aspects of education, employment, social welfare, and children backed by logical arguments. Today's argument discussions are not just academic, but a vital contribution to the national dialogue on child welfare in India. The insights shared here could influence policymakers and share the future for millions of children. Keeping that in mind, we are all honored to have these 18 young experts here with us today who are going to share their distinctive viewpoints on how the Budget 2024 affects children. Our speakers today come from various academic backgrounds and regions across India, each bringing the unique perspective to the issue concerning children to the table. I would now like to request Anushka Aneja ma'am from Team Sarkari Schools to please deliver the welcome address. Ma'am, please. Anushka ma'am, are you here? Seems Anushka ma'am is not here. So by the time she comes, I would like to invite Bani Kaur, who is the main force behind today's event. Uh, Bani, can you please deliver the welcome address?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. I'm Bani Kaur, and I'm delighted to welcome you all on behalf of the organizing committee for today's event, Children in Budget 2024, the Youth Perspective. We extend our heartfelt thanks to all our distinguished speakers for joining us and contributing their valuable time and expertise. Your presence here underscores the importance of understanding how the union budget affects the youngest citizens. The purpose of today's event is to bridge the gap between policy and its real world implications for children. As Budget 2024 introduces new policies and allocations, it is crucial that we explore how these changes impact areas such as education, health, and overall well being. This event is essential not only for addressing current needs but also for anticipating and preparing for the future challenges. We are particularly eager to hear your recommendations and advice as they are vital for guiding future policies and ensuring that the needs of children are effectively met. Your perspectives will play a significant role in shaping these dialogue and influencing positive change. Thank you once again for being here and contributing to this event. Let's work together to make this event a success and drive meaningful progress for children's welfare.
Thank you, Bani. As the former President of the United States, Franklin D. Roosevelt, had rightly said, we cannot always build the future of our youth, but we can always build our youth for the future. With that sentiment in mind, let's move on to our much anticipated segment of our event. Before we start, I would like to go over the rules of procedure for our participants. Number one, the speakers are provided with a range of sub-themes carefully curated by our theme, and each speaker is allotted 4 to 5 minutes. We kindly request that you adhere to the given time limit. Our first speaker for the day is Rudraksh Madaan from Ramjas College, University of Delhi, and he will be speaking on nutrition and midday meal programs. Rudraksh, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much for the invitation, Kaushiki. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Rudraksh, and I'm honored enough to discuss a very vital aspect of our Indian budget, that is the allocations for the nutrition and midday meal programs. So first of all, I'll be beginning with the importance of nutrition. So as we all know, nutrition is something that is being overlooked by most of the people in our country, especially. And when it comes to children, it is something that should not be overlooked, but it is being overlooked. Nutrition's talking about nutrition's link with education. So as we all know that nutrition is something that if the body is sound and the mind is sound, then only a child can put his complete focus in the field of education. So our government has started recognizing the importance of nutrition, and for the current financial year the government has significantly increased the budget by around 2500 crores rupees, and the government is approximately allocating around rupees 13,000 crores. The boost is a testament to our commitment, to the government's commitment to combating child malnutrition, and enhancing educational performances across the country. Though its overall part in the budget is 0.3%, which we'll be discussing further in the speech. All right, so talking about the impact of child hunger and health in these days. So as I'm here to address on the midday meal program, so let's talk about the midday meal program in brief. So the midday meal program right now is known as the PM Poshan. So in PM Poshan, the midday meal program is a cornerstone of the government strategy to address child hunger and child's malnutrition, जिसमें the government ensures that over around 120 million children receive nutritious meals every day. Though we'll be going into the depth that how much practical it is, how much it is being implicated, and how nicely it is being implicated. So first of all, the force behind the implication of this. Let's go into it. So the government thinks that, as I said, nutrition is very much linked with the educational outcomes. So as we all know that well nourished children are more likely to attend schools regularly and perform better academically. The new expanded academic budget allows for the provision of more balanced and diverse meals, which not only will meet the caloric needs of the children, but at the same time the vitamin and other nutritional needs of the children. The evidences suggest that the one who gets benefit from these meal programs demonstrate up to a 10% of improvement in learning outcome, because if a body is sound, as I mentioned before, the child will be able to put his focus very nicely in his academics. Moreover, if we dwell into it, then practically, if we talk about this, then the attendance level of the children has significantly increased, especially in the rural areas where the children was earlier not able to meet his hunger needs. Now, as the government is providing all the necessary things in the school, so the child has an extra boost or extra reason to attend the school. All right, but again, these are the things which are on paper. If we dwell into the practicality of these things, then the world is a bit different, upside down. So we need to dwell into it. So what I feel is that there is still a scope of further improvement, despite this policy is very nice on paper. So while the increased funding, as I said, the funding has been increased by 3,000 crore rupees. The increased funding is a significant step forward, but there are still some areas. So I think I am a right person to comment on the quality, because I have myself been a part of a government school from my class 6 to class 12, where we used to get midday meals. So the thing that should be addressed is the quality. First of all, the quality that is being delivered on practical level, on ground level, is something that should be looked. For this, the government should actually uh, introduce different menus for different days, so that we can address a holistic growth in children when it comes to their nutritional growth. Moreover, what government can do is government can reach out to the children, to the parents of the children who are being provided this food, these meals, so that the parents can actually tell that what is actually good for their children, or how the food should be prepared. The parents should be surveyed for this. Moreover, there are some things that, as I said before, a diverse menu would provide diverse amount of nutritions, which will again help the children. At the same time, if I am moving towards my conclusion, at the same time, it is very important that the government should actually introduce some programs along with this midday meal program, so that we can actually get to know which child or what children are actually deficient in what sort of minerals and vitamins. For example, there are some child who are deficient in iron, whereas there are some child who are deficient in vitamin B complex. So right now it is the need of the hour that government should look into it as well and provide some tests and increase the expenditure, because 0.3% budget for such an important issue, if we are talking that these children are going to be the flag bearers in the future, then I feel that this is something in which government should increase the budget a bit more, so that nice steps can be taken forward. And as I conclude, as I end my words, we can further enhance the impact of these programs and continue to build a healthier India and a more educated future for our nation if the government increase the budget significantly and improves and introduces the step that I have discussed. So yes, that's all with my words. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rudraksh, for highlighting the importance of nutrition in children and how it impacts education, and also for bringing into the conversation that diverse menus are required and the quality of food should be improved when it comes to midday meals. Um our next speaker for the day is Gursheen Kaur Monga from Sri Guru Gobind Singh College of Commerce, and she will be speaking on mental health and counseling services. Gursheen, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Kaushiki, for the warm introduction. So, as we all know, my topic is mental health and counseling services. Its funding, its impact on addressing mental health issues among children and adolescents. So, as we all know, every year India announces its union budget on 1st February. However, this year, with elections scheduled for April to May 2024, the government has presented an interim budget instead of a full budget. So, the union budget for mental health consists of direct allocations under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare, and some indirect allocations under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Currently, the health budget is for the current year 24-25 is 90,659 crores, and for mental health under budget it's 1010 crores. So, what is mental health and what is its importance? So, mental health is our emotional, psychological, and social well being. It is how we think, feel, and act. It helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make healthy choices. Just like our physical health, it is important to all people at any age group, which include anxiety disorder, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, disruptive behavioral disorder, mood disorders such as depression, bipolar disorders, eating disorder, personality disorder, post traumatic stress disorder, schizophrenia spectrum, and other psychotic disorders, substance use disorders, and various many disorders lying here. Lying here. The increase in number of sexual assault among adolescents is increasing due to easy access to adult filmography. Recently, one case happened in the Rewa district of MP. A 13-year-old boy was detained for allegedly raping and murdering his 9-year-old sister. So I guess we should look into this fact that the adult filmography should be banned for these age groups, and there should be strict implication of the policies and social and cyber networking, so that these things should be avoided from their age group. Also, the mental health allocations under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare also discussed that there have been three main line items for mental health under the Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. These three allocations include National Institute of Mental Health and Neurosciences, Lokpriya Gopinath Bordoloi Regional Institute of Mental Health in Tezpur, and the National Tele Mental Health Program, which highlights has consistently received the largest allocation of the mental health budget over the last few years, and this trend has continued into the current fiscal year too. Notably, the allocation to NIMHANS increased 18% over last year. In contrast, the allocation for Lokpriya Gopinath Bordoloi in Tezpur, Assam was down 6.25% from INR 64 crore in 23-24 to 60 crore in FY 24-25. So, we should also encourage tele-counseling for this age group, and also we should also include many practices so that we can prevent the mental health awareness. We could spread mental health awareness and also disrupt and remove depression and every disease we face during these times. However, the mental health components under the Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment include allocations of Department of Empowerment for persons with disabilities too. As we know that if a person has disability, he is constrained to have some mental illness too because of his we can say that he has lower confidence level, or he is always ashamed of his physical well-being. So to prevent that he is born with that physical disability, so we should always try to prevent the mental disability he might have or he is currently facing. So we should clearly focus on that. Within this, the National Welfare Program for Persons with Disability comprises of the Scheme for Implementation of the Persons with Disabilities Act and the Deen Dayal Disabled Rehabilitation Scheme, which encompasses of legal and rehabilitation support for people with psychological disabilities as well. So the overall allocation for the scheme has remained around the same as last year. So for several years, the mental health budget in India has remained stagnant, hovering around 1% of the total health budget. A substantial part of this budget is allocated to one premier institute. Budgets for mental health are provided by consistently low utilizations, perpetuating a cycle of low allocations. This trend has been observed in funding for the district mental health program, discussed in detail in the issue brief. Given the brief of mental health conditions and the treatment gap in India, there needs to be an improvement in allocations and subsequent financial monitoring of such allocations to ensure full utilization of funds. Since financial year 23-24, the government does not disclose the allocation of to the National Mental Health Program. It plays a crucial role in making mental health support systems accessible to the general public. Currently, the budget for uh, National Mental Health Program has been subsumed under the Consolidated Head Territory Care Program. This is concerning in two broad ways. The first is the limited funding to the mental health program. The entire tertiary care line item has been allocated 371.55 crore, while NIMHANS and Lokpriya together have been allocated INR 910 crore. This centralizing of mental health care to two institutes limits accessibility to healthcare in settings where it is required. When services are centralized, there is also limited opportunity for continuity of care in local settings, which is crucial for mental health conditions, including rehabilitation services, daycare facilities, and housing provisions, among others. The second is the lack of transparency regarding funds allocated to the NMPH, severely restricting the ability to monitor and improve the program and its funding. The emphasis placed on the government on digital mental health interventions, as evidenced by the significant allocation for telemanas and its designation as a separate line item since FY 2024, is notable. However, there are concerns regarding data privacy, accessibility of such interventions to the population that might not be tech savvy, and their limited efficacy when the mental health care system as a whole is underfunded and understaffed. Finally, in addition to increase and more transparent funding for the critical aspects of mental health care, such as National Mental Health Program, mental health requires a holistic approach and should have support from the government in terms of opportunities towards seeking education, employment, and healthcare. Thank you.
Thank you, Gursheen, for highlighting the various government initiatives and fund allocations for mental health programs and your thoughtful recommendations for disabled children as well. Continuing the momentum, I would like to invite our next speaker, who is from Shahid Bhagat Singh College, University of Delhi, who will now share his insights on education funding and accessibility. Manan Alwadhi, the floor is yours.
Hi there. Hi everyone. My name is Manan Alwadhi and I'm delighted to be here today for the discussion. So first of all, to gain a clear perspective, it is crucial for us to understand the current state of the education sector and examine its flaws that have persisted for so many years. Understanding these issues provides the necessary context for discussing potential reforms and improvements. One of the major flaws in our education system, and I think everyone can agree with me on this, is that it is simply outdated, and as it is struggling to integrate essential modern skills that are crucial for a child's holistic development. It still relies too much on rote learning, leaving little room for critical thinking, creativity, or practical skills. Another problem is that the education sector faces is the presence of a digital divide in rural areas, where access to modern learning tools and resources is limited due to lack of proper infrastructure. Even though these modern learning tools and sources are still available to some extent in urban areas, they're completely absent, hence affecting the holistic development of children in rural areas. In conclusion, this gap between old methods and today's needs highlights the urgent need for comprehensive changes in the education sector. Now, let us examine how the budget aims to address these challenges. As far as the numbers go, this year's budget allocation for the education sector stands at rupees 1.21 lakh crores in comparison to last year's allocation rupees 1.16 lakh crores in the education sector. Now, I feel it is relatively modest given the scale of challenges that this sector faces, as I just discussed, including the need for much improved infrastructure, updated curriculum, and reducing the rural urban digital divide. Now, I'm going to be presenting a table which will allow me to better explain the history of budgetary allocations in the education sector. Um, just in sorry, yeah. I hope it is visible. So as you can see, even though the budgetary allocations in the education
Manan,
sector have been
I
still,
think it's not
yeah,
visible.
it's not visible. Okay. Uh, okay, I'll just present my screen. Is it visible now?
Yes, Manan.
Yeah, okay. So as you can see, even though the budgetary allocations have been steadily increasing almost every year, the concerning part is that the education expenditure as a proportion of total union budget expenditure is a mere 2.50% as per the latest budget, which amounts to exactly 0.3% of the country's GDP, which is again concerning for us. As a result, this shows that there is a massive scope for India to increase its budgetary allocation in education, especially when it has already been emphasized on increasing it to 6% of the total GDP, as also suggested by the new education policy 2020. Also, in comparison to other countries, like United States, which allocate around 6% of their GDP to education, followed by Australia at 5.8% and United Kingdom at 4.2%. Now, aside from all of this, simply allocating funds is also not enough to help the education sector. If we have to bring a fundamental change, we must ensure that these funds are being utilized properly. First and foremost, the budget should include provisions for enhancing digital access in rural areas, which would play a massive role in bridging the urban rural gap that we have discussed. Improving upon to access is something as simple as the internet, which is technically the most basic necessity of our lives, and we can't imagine our lives without it, right? It can solve a lot of problems of the outdated curriculum and inadequate infrastructure. As students in rural areas would be able to access up-to-date content, interactive lessons, and global perspectives that can enhance their educational experience far beyond what traditional textbooks can provide. Further, the government should focus on laying the groundwork for a more equitable education landscape and significantly reducing the alarmingly high dropout rates among primary and secondary education in rural areas, which are 40 and 57% respectively. As for the urban areas, urban schools often face this challenge of overcrowding, which can hinder the learning process. Hence, the budget allocation should be focused around utilized properly towards expanding schools' infrastructure, ensuring that the students have a conducive learning environment. Furthermore, the government should provide initiatives for the students to explore beyond their classrooms and initiate programs that would allow them to develop basic modern skills and knowledge that are needed to thrive in this competitive world. In conclusion, even though newer initiatives like Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan are partially fulfilling all of this, including it has emphasized on the construction and renovation of government schools with efforts to improve the quality of education and modifying the curriculum. I feel we need to make sure that these resources actually lead to real improvements as these initiatives should continue on for the next 5-10 years, so that we can actually see some improvements in the education access and quality for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Manan, for highlighting pertinent issues concerning funding and resource allocation. Moving ahead, our fourth speaker for the day is Manya Arora from Jesus and Mary College, University of Delhi, and her topic today is special needs education.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. And I myself is pursuing bachelor's in elementary education. So I'm in touch with the ground reality of the government schools. And it is really essential that we focus on the provisions of inclusive education and the support extended to children with disabilities. These aspects are not only fundamental to the accessibility and the quality of special education services, but it also is a broader question of how our society upholds the rights and dignity of every child. The 2024 Union Budget has been presented with several commendable initiatives, which aimed at enhancing quality of education in India. However, when it comes to special needs education, the impact of these provisions must be scrutinized carefully. With around 37 crores specifically for the Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, which is the flagship program for promoting inclusive education in India, has been allocated. A noteworthy initiative is allocation of 1,000 crore rupees for establishing new model inclusive schools in every district, aiming at setting benchmarks for infrastructure and pedagogical practices for children with disabilities. However, this figure must be viewed critically. We must acknowledge that the overall budget increase for SSA is marginal, especially when adjusted for inflation. It indicates stagnation rather than expansion in real terms. Given that approximately 2.1% of Indian population are children with disabilities, the budgetary provision falls short of investments required to meet their diverse needs. According to Unified District Information System for Education report, only 44% of schools in India have ramps for wheelchairs access, and a mere 26% have accessible toilets. The budget allocation for Model Inclusive School is a step in a right direction, but the overall Infrastructure Development Fund under SSA lacks specific targets. Moreover, the National Education Policy 2020 also emphasizes the need for barrier free access to education. The quality of education for children with disabilities hinges on the availability of trained special educators and inclusive teacher training practices. Currently, India faces a severe shortage of special educators, only with about 27,000 of them are registered for over 8 million children with disabilities as per the Rehabilitation Council of India. The 2024 budget allocates 500 crore for teacher training under the Nishtha. While this includes training for inclusive education, the allocation is insufficient considering the scale of the challenge. We need to consider special education requires more than the general teacher training. It demands dedicated resources for recruitment and continuous professional development of special educators, as well as implementation of individualized educational plans tailored to each child's unique needs. The absence of financial provision for IEPs means that many children will continue to receive one size fits all education, which fails to cater to the unique learning requirements. So to address these gaps, I would like to propose few policy recommendation. First, allocation of minimum 2,000 crores specifically for the recruitment training of special educators to ensure every school must have one qualified professional. Second, commit at least 10% of SSA budget to making all schools fully accessible by 2026, including the installation of ramps, accessible toilets, and assistive technology. Third, enhancing the UDI SE system to include comprehensive data on enrollment, retention, and performance of children with disabilities with annual public reports to ensure transparency and accountability. Last but not the least, leverage partnerships between the government, private sector, and NGOs to bring additional expertise, technology, and funding to special education, particularly underserved rural areas.
Thank you, Manya, for your insights on special need education and also highlighting that one size doesn't really fit all. Um, our next speaker will be speaking on early childhood development. She's a student of Lady Shri Ram College for Women, University of Delhi. Ananya, the floor is yours. Ananya, are you here? All right, we'll move on if she's not here. Our sixth speaker is a recent high school graduate, Prabhat, and will be sharing his unique perspective of environmental education and climate action. Prabhat, the floor is all yours. Prabhat, you're on mute. Can you please unmute yourself and start with your speech?
Oh, I'm really sorry. Greetings
No,
to
that's
everyone. Thanks a lot for that wonderful introduction. In a future where we grow up and ask our children a single reason. The children who can cite the periodic table up to 100 plus elements don't even know a single reason why there are floods in the country, droughts, and rising temperatures. Unfortunately, this reality is not far from the future. Now, how can we solve this? We have to solve this by climate education programs in our country. But first, we need to address the current situation in India. In India, the Union Budget of 2023 allocated a sum of 3,030 crores to the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. However, only a measly amount of 58 crores was earmarked specifically for environment education, awareness and training. This is a reduction from 77 crores from the previous year. If we talk about 2024, 3,030 crores was allocated, and the sad part is only 0 rupees were spent and earmarked for the training. So, how can we just assume that a population of 1.4 billion people is facing environmental challenges and we are spending less than an amount that is enough for the building of 1 kilometers of metro rail? It means fewer resources, fewer programs, and fewer opportunities for young minds. Let us take some examples of some countries so that we can take inspiration from them. Take Finland, for example, a country that has excelled in healthcare programs and excelled in education as well. It also leads some other countries in happiness indexes. Finland invests around 100 million euros annually into sustainability education so that they can develop some youth leaders that can impact the lives of the future children. This system uses innovative methods like phenomenon based learning, where students explore real world problems like climate change from multiple angles so that they can solve them at the grassroots level. Let us take another example of Costa Rica. Environmental education is prioritized here. They spend around 0.4% of their whole GDP of $90 billion into climate education. They have a specific program that is known as the Blue Flag program, that in which they just teach the students how to build some initiatives from the grassroots levels. Now, what is the conclusion of our budget? The 2024 Indian budget has allocated substantial funds into the education sector as well, that is 1.48 lakh rupees, but it has not substantiated some claims on environmental education, and they just call it innovative programs. We have to just substantiate a standalone amount of at least 200 to 400 crores so that we can have a substantial amount that can lead the future. What are the solutions? I like to just propose three solutions for the future. First of all, is integration of subjects. Environmental education is not a separate subject. It has to be integrated into subjects like mathematics or literature, physical education, economics, or ecology. Second things is hands-on learning. Remember, when you have just built something from scratch in the childhood, you have personal connection to it. Similarly, if we just teach our youth to just some release some climate education projects from the grassroots level, they'll have a personal connection to it. Third is the teacher training. Now, how can we expect our youth to just know about climate change if their teachers don't even know about it? So we have to invest heavily and have the teachers program so that the teachers can be taught for the climate change. As we move towards the end, I'd like to propose a thought. The greatest threat to our planet is the belief that someone else will save it. So we should now not procrastinate, as procrastination will eventually lead to the assassination of our destination. Thank you.
Thank you, Prabhat, for your passionate case for urgent environmental education and your recommendations for hands-on approach dealing with climate change. We appreciate that. Our eighth speaker for the day is Aarya Pandey. She is a student of Banaras Hindu University and will be sharing her very own perspective on child protection and welfare.
Thank you and good evening to one and all present here. I'm going to today speak on the budgetary measures 2024 for child protection. As we all know, that since time immemorial, India has traditionally celebrated the idea of an untainted child's perspective in the festivals of Krishna Janmashtami and Navratri Kanya Pujan. These go on to reflect the simple, authentic, and compassionate attitude of children. However, we cannot avoid the fact that there exists some snag in this utopia. Reality unfolds a very unpleasant statistic showcasing that the times that we are living in are ruthless. The National Crime Records Bureau has reported that in 2022, India witnessed a staggering 8.7% increase in child abuses. Yes, you heard that right. It is indeed an alarming situation. Nevertheless, India has developed over the years a fairly strong and comprehensive legal and legislative framework that ensures the rights and protection of children. Yet, abuse and exploitation remain a harsh reality for millions. As the budget was being presented by the Finance Minister on July 23rd, 2024, many child rights organizations tracked its unfolding. The Union budget has allocated approximately 1,09,920 crores for child welfare, which has been calculated as a 5.5% rise from previous year. The Union budget proves its forward-thinking nature by introducing pension schemes for minors, increasing allocation for child health, nutrition, and education. The flagship schemes under the Women and Child Development Ministry have also been given substantial funds to continue their efforts. For instance, the Saksham Anganwadi and Mission Poshan 2.0 saw an increase of 3.14% in the budget. By focusing on the child education, the budget will help eliminate child labor by addressing its root cause, which is a denial to their right to education. As we all know that many children are compelled to drop out of school to support their families, which limits their opportunities for the future and perpetuates them into a cycle of illiteracy. Schemes like PM Schools for Rising India, with a focus on national education policy, receive the maximum share of resources. The Department of School Education and Literacy, with important schemes under it like the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, Kendriya Vidyalaya Sangathan, and Navodaya Vidyalaya Samiti, saw an increase of 6.2% in its funding. While these developments are indeed applaudable, however, when we closely look at the allocations, child protection, like every year, remains under-resourced with the least share in the budget. It has been disappointing and disheartening that the share of children in the full-fledged budget is a minuscule of 2.29%. It has been recorded as the lowest allocation percentage-wise for child welfare in 13 years. Child abuse continues in India despite of having comprehensive laws like POSCO. Kidnapping and abduction constitute 46% of the crimes, whereas sexual violence against children has absurd from 96% from 2016 to 2022. These numbers point to some gruesome realities. Despite being the need of the hour, the state also pays no heed. This could be understood when we see the Mission Vatsalya scheme, which was being launched to support the state government in delivering services for children in need of care and protection and children in conflict with the law. This also saw no increase or decrease in the budget, similar to last year and the year before. The National Child Labour Project, which has now been submerged with the Samagra Shiksha, saw almost no allocation at all in the budget. Also, the practicality of these generous schemes is a bit shaky. For instance, even though the Ministry of Tribal Affairs saw an increase of 7% in its budget allocation, the implementation of Eklavya model residential schools have received criticism for the use of only English and Hindi by the teachers in the selected tribal areas. These schools are supposed to recruit teachers who can teach in the native language of the region. But due to this difficulty in understanding the language, children have a fear of failing in the subjects, which has led to an increased dropout rate, further threatening a spike in child labor cases. India is home to more than 400 plus million children up to the age of 18, which makes up for the 39% of the country's population. The biggest question I raise before you is that amidst the rising concerns about crime against children and the huge pendency of cases of both crimes committed by children and against them, can such a declining tendency in the budget be justified? The best way to address this issue is to develop a formidable legal framework and implement the proposed regulations. Develop a community involvement, launch extensive public awareness, and collaborate with various NGOs and think tanks to gather ground reality and promote reform. With the coming of digital India, new challenges like cyberbullying, online exploitation, and exposure to inappropriate content have raised their ugly head. I use this platform to urge the policymakers to come up with innovative solutions that blend technology with protective measures. Budgeting for children by the government should not remain limited as a mere annual accounting exercise. Rather, it should be used as a tool to plan and execute interventions for their safety and security. As a youth of India, I am positive that India is dedicated to meet the Sustainable Development Goals by 2030 and become a Vikasit Bharat. But if children are not included in this trend, it will be challenging to achieve this ideal, and the road to success will remain unclear. Concluding my analysis, I would like to point towards the importance of inclusion of children in the budget and state the wise words of Nelson Mandela, who has rightly said, and I quote, "There can be no keener revelation of a society's soul than the way in which it treats its children." Thank you.
Thanks, Arya, for highlighting issues like sexual abuse and exploitation of our children in our country and the lagging response of our government to deal with this issue. Next up, Bhavya Yadav is a student of Kirorimal College, University of Delhi. She is here with us to share her insights on special needs education. Bhavya.
Thank you so much for that introduction. As Arjun introduced, I'll be talking about special needs education, the provision for inclusion that the government provides in terms of education and other support to people with disabilities. Since this session is largely centered around the union budget, let me take you through some recent number. The current budget allocation for people with disability stands at 0.025%, a huge contrast to the 5% that disability organizations have actively been demanding for a long time. The government has recently pushed narratives about Divyang Kalyan, which is essentially welfare of disabled people. Subsequently, the budget expenditure for the same remains low. There's a gap between the government's intentions and its actual expenditure on the same that is negatively impacted true inclusion in the society. So let us talk about a few recent programs in order to gauge the situation better. Firstly, the Rights of Persons with Disability Act is an act that has failed to be implemented for multiple years now. Not only that, but the allocation that has been provided to this act has decreased a lot in the recent years. It has gone from 315 crore in 2019 to 20 to a mere 135 crore currently in the present budget. Even furthermore, the provisions for scholarship with people with disabilities has decreased by more than 10 crore in the current budget. In terms of other support, The Accessible India campaign that was launched in 2015 by the government is also met with unfulfilled targets and unsuspended funds. The movement was made for creation of an inclusive society in terms of infrastructure, in terms of transportation, and other support that the government could provide to people with disabilities. However, the reports suggest that there has been a very low conversion rate in this particular program, and the data about it remains unclear. There's a common trend that we can observe here in among all these schemes and programs with people with disabilities. Schemes do exist, funds are always allocated. However, the implementation criteria is never met. The targets always remain unfulfilled. It is important for the government to actually look into this actual implementation of all these programs, because people with disabilities cannot benefit from any of these schemes until and unless they are present on the ground level supporting these people at all points of time. But not only that, I think it is also important for these people to have necessary sufficient funds. Because let me take you through the impact of lack of funds and other support by the government, it would have on the life of these peoples. Now, understand, if as a person with disability, I have quotas and reservation in employment, in education, almost everywhere. Yet there's a gap that exists. So even if I, as a person with disability, can get admission into one of the top colleges in the entire country, there's still a gap that exists between me and that college. This gap could look like a lack of financial resources, because the society does not have a very positive attitude towards people with disability, and people might not be willing to spend so much on a person who is disabled. But also this could look like lack of infrastructure, lack of transportation to take me to that particular college. What we can understand from this is that if the government provides for the education and employment and other facilities for these people, it is essentially going to lift them up and make them self-sufficient and independent, which is something that they cannot achieve right now without in the current lack of resources and lack of funds allocated to them. Right now they're stuck in a vicious cycle of dependence on other people, but also ostracization from the society, thanks to them being perceived as a burden. As in, when you allow people to access these opportunities along with the support that they require, you are essentially allowing them to earn for themselves, to be more independent. To prevent and minimize them being a burden, it is very important the government includes them in their schemes, and these schemes are actually implemented at all points of time. However, here we have only looked at one side of the coin. Physical disabilities are not only physical in nature, intellectual disabilities also exist, and they are something that is largely ignored by the society at large here. They're not acknowledged due to lack of general understanding about the same, and multiple intellectual disabilities go undiagnosed because people are not even aware about these particular intellectual disabilities. So children having these end up facing a much harsher reality. I hope in the subsequent budget, the government can put focus on these intellectual disabilities as well. Furthermore, I hope the government is going to put effort into actual implementation of all its schemes and provide for much better allocation of funds for the same. With that, I think that would be all. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Bhavya. You have rightly said, the budget expenditure on special need education is low, and it does restrict their inclusion in society. Moving forward, we have our ninth speaker. She's a student of the JSS Medical College and will be sharing her insights on health and nutrition programs. Mansi, you're up.
Hello everyone. Am I audible and visible?
You are audible, but you're not quite visible.
Um,
Yes, it's perfect right now. Thank you so much.
is it fine now?
Yes,
Yes,
Mansi.
yes, you're
You can
good.
go ahead.
Okay. So, hello everyone. So, today, as a representative of the youth, I would like to discuss an issue of utmost importance: how the 2024 budget provisions for children, particularly in health and nutrition, will shape our nation's future. Children are not just the future, they are the present, and the investment we make today will determine our nation's growth and development. So, firstly, I'll talk about the evaluating budget provisions under Health and Nutrition Program. So the Union Budget 2024 to 2025 has earmarked the significant allocations for child healthcare and nutrition. However, as young people concerned with the future of our nation, we must critically assess whether these provisions are sufficient and whether they truly address the needs of every child in India. One of the highlights of this year's budget is the rupees 7,500 crore allocation to the Pradhan Mantri Jan Arogya Yojana, a program that seeks to provide broader healthcare access through insurance schemes. While commendable, it raises question about its effectiveness in addressing the specific needs of children, particularly in preventive and promotive healthcare. Moreover, the National Health Mission witnessed a modest increase of 3.7% over the previous year, which, while welcome, still falls short of addressing the rapidly growing needs of our young population. For instance, the Pradhan Mantri Swasthya Suraksha Yojana, aimed at enhancing tertiary healthcare infrastructure, saw a 29% budget reduction compared to the previous year. This could have adverse effects on specialized health services for children, especially in unreserved areas. Nextly, I will talk about the impact on child malnutrition. Child malnutrition remains a critical challenge in India, and the budgetary provisions play a pivotal role in addressing it. Programs like Integrated Child Development Services, that is ICDS program, and the midday meal scheme are central to this fight. However, the 2024 budget has not provided any substantial increase for these programs. The midday meal scheme, now renamed as PM Poshan, has seen budgetary stagnation, raising concerns about its stability to reduce malnutrition levels effectively. This stagnation is particularly alarming given that the Comprehensive National Nutrition Survey reveals that 35% of children under 5 are stunted, 17% are wasted, and 33 are underweight. These statistics highlight a dire need for increased financial commitment to nutrition specific interventions, yet the budget appears to be lagging in this regard. Thirdly, I would like to discuss the healthcare infrastructure and service availability. The budget offers a mixed picture in terms of healthcare infrastructure. The PMSSY budget reduction could negatively impact the availability of specialized health services for children in under-reserved areas. While the focus on insurance scheme is beneficial, it should be complemented with adequate public health provisioning. The shortfall in rural and urban health infrastructure remains significant, with deficits of 25% in sub-centers, 31% in primary health center, and 36% in community health center in rural areas. Strengthening these basic healthcare facilities is crucial to achieving universal child healthcare, yet the budget does not seem to prioritize these needs adequately. Now comes the youth perspective. As young people, we see the 2024 budget as a step forward, but it falls short of the leap that is needed. The ICDS program, with an allocation of Rs 20,554 crores, plays a crucial role in early childhood care and development. While this allocation demonstrates a commitment to the program, we must ask, is it enough to meet the expanding needs of our growing population? With inflation and increased demand for services in rural and remote areas, more robust funding is essential to ensure that no child is left behind. The midday meal scheme, which received Rs 11,600 crore in this year's budget, remains a lifeline for millions of school-going children. However, improving the nutritional content of these meals is not just a necessity, but a right for every child. The youth of India demand better nutrition, which is vital for cognitive development and overall health. The National Health Mission's allocation of Rs 39,000 crores, including child health and nutrition, is substantial. However, how effectively these funds are utilized will determine the real impact on the ground. We, as young citizens, are increasingly aware of the gaps in healthcare delivery, particularly in under-reserved areas. Innovative approaches, including technology integration and public private partnerships, are essential to ensure that every child, irrespective of their background, has access to quality healthcare. The Ministry of Women and Child Development, which has a central role in child welfare, saw only a 2.52% increase in funding compared to 2023. This minimal increase is particularly concerning given the significant challenges that remain in ensuring child welfare. The Saksham Anganwadi and Poshan 2.0 programs, which target malnutrition among children, adolescent girls, pregnant women, and lactating mothers, saw a slight budget increase from Rs 17,471.16 crores in 2022 to Rs 18,020 crores in 2024. While this reflects a 3.14% increase, it is insufficient to address the scale of malnutrition in the country. Despite these budgetary provisions, a significant portion of our children continues to suffer from malnutrition. The National Family Health Survey (NFHS 5) reveals that nearly one-third of children under 5 years of age are stunted or underweight. These statistics highlight the urgent need for not only budgetary allocations, but also effective implementation, rigorous monitoring, and accountability to translate these funds into tangible outcomes. As young people, we are not just passive recipients of the policies laid out by our government, we are active stakeholders in shaping our nation's future. We urge the government to not only increase budgetary allocation for child health and nutrition, but also ensure that these funds reach the children who need them the most. This means improving the efficiency of our delivery system, ensuring transparency in fund utilization, and involving communities in the planning and execution of these programs. So, in conclusion, the 2024 budget reflects a commitment to children's welfare, but from a youth perspective, it is clear that more needs to be done. The share of the children's budget in the total expenditure is just 2.29%, the lowest in 13 years. While there was an increase of Rs 5,700 2.38 crores in absolute terms, it pales in comparison to the previous year's increase of Rs 11,554.20 crores. The future of India lies in the hands of its children, and it is our responsibility to ensure that they have the resources and opportunities they need to thrive. As we move forward, let us remember that investing in our children is not just a matter of policy, but it is a matter of national importance. As young people, we urge the government to not only increase budgetary allocations for child health and nutrition, but also to ensure that these funds reach the children who need them the most. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mansi, for stressing on the fact that children are not just our future, but they're also our present. So they need our special attention. Up next, we have Yash Gupta from Hansraj College, University of Delhi. He has chosen to share his perspective on education funding and accessibility. Yash, you're up.
I'm audible?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, guys, let's start. So, let's imagine a future where every child in India, whether from a bustling city or a remote village, has access to quality education. Today, let's dive into how the 2024 Union Budget is turning this vision into reality. A whooping rupees 1.48 lakh crores dedicated to shaping young minds from the previous year 2023. That's right, the education sector has received a significant boost with rupees 50,000 crores specifically for primary and secondary education. But what does this mean for our children? Let's break it down. For our little ones in primary schools, rupees 30,000 crore is said to work magic from which is nearly more than last year. We are talking about new schools popping up in rural areas, clean drinking water, and proper sanitation facilities, ensuring a healthy learning environment. But that's not all. We are also addressing the critical issues of teacher shortage in rural areas. Imagine dedicated educators in every village inspires the next generation of learners. Move up to secondary education, rupees 20,000 crore is paving the way for a digital revolution, an increase from rupees 18,000 crore in 2023. Picture classrooms where smart boards replace chalk, and students in remote areas can access the same quality of education as their urban counterparts. We are not just preparing students for exam, we are preparing them for life with enhanced vocational training programs. From coding to carpentry, we are equipping our youth with the skills they need to thrive in 21st century. Now let's share some exciting key highlights that are set to transform our education landscape. Introduction of e-vouchers for education loans up to rupees 10 lakh for 1 lakh students annually. This means more students can pursue higher education without the burden of financial constraint. vocational training programs, and upgradation of 1,000 ITIs to align with industry needs. We are bridging the gap between education and employability, ensuring our students are job ready. A reduction in UGC funding by 61% from rupees 6,409 crores to rupees 2,500 crores. Now, before you raise an eyebrow, let me assure you there is an increase in grants for central universities by over 4,000 crores. We are restructuring to ensure more direct funding reaches our institution. The Digital Sakshar program. This initiative aims to provide tablets preloaded with educational contents to 5 million students in rural areas over the next 3 years. Imagine a child in remote village having access to the world's knowledge at their fingertips. Teachers Tech Training, a nationwide program to upskill 1 million teachers in digital and AI assisted teaching methods. Our educators are being equipped to lead in the digital age. Green School Initiative. 1,000 schools across India will be transformed into eco friendly campuses promoting environmental awareness and sustainable practices. We are not just educating minds, we are nurturing responsible citizens. Entrepreneurship in Education Scheme. Introducing startup incubators in 500 secondary schools to foster innovation and entrepreneurial skills among students. Who knows? The next big tech giant might start in a school classroom. This results, they are already speaking volumes. We have seen a 3% increase in primary enrollment in rural areas and a 2% bump in urban areas. Dropouts have decreased by 1.5% in rural areas and 1% in urban areas for secondary schools. It's not just about keeping kids in school, it's about helping them excel standardized test scores in rural areas. The numbers are not just statistics, they represent real children with brighter futures. It's about from a village in Rajasthan who knows dreams of becoming a software engineer, or Amir from the outskirts of Mumbai who discovered a passion for sustainable agriculture through his school's new program. Let's be real. We are not popping the campaign just yet. While we are making strides, there's still a marathon ahead. We need to push harder for better digital infrastructure in remote areas, ensuring that the Digital Sanskar program reaches every corner of our nation. We must tackle teacher absenteeism, perhaps through innovative monitoring systems and incentives programs. And let's not forget the need to put a spotlight on students' mental health, an area that demands our immediate attention and resources. As we wrap up, remember this: every rupee invested in our education is a building block for a stronger, smarter India. The 2024 budget is a right step direction, built it up to all policymakers, educators, parents, and students to turn this investment in the brighter tomorrow. So let's roll up ourselves and get to work. After all, the future of our nation is sitting in classrooms right now, dreaming big and reaching for stars. It's our job to make sure that they have launchpad they need to soar from the valleys of Kashmir to the shores of Kanyakumari. Let's ensure that quality education is not just a privilege for some, but a fundamental right for all. Thank you for your time and dedication to this noble cause. Together, let's make a quality not just a dream, but reality to every child in India. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Yash, for your pertinent points on steps taken to improve the funding and accessibility regarding education in the budget this year, and also your innovative recommendations. We appreciate that. Our next speaker for the day is a student of Gargi College, University of Delhi, who will be sharing her insights on health and nutrition programs. Sameeksha Chauhan, the floor is yours. Thank you. Hopefully, it will be resolved soon. Till then, moving ahead, Ravi Sharma is a student of Ramjas College, University of Delhi. He will be speaking on the topic infrastructure developments for schools. Ravi, the floor is yours.
थैंक्स अर्जुन। तो जैसे अर्जुन ने बताया, मेरा टॉपिक है इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर डेवलपमेंट इन स्कूल्स। तो मैं पहले अपना एक थोड़ा सा इंट्रोडक्शन देना चाहूंगा ताकि आप लोगों को समझ में आ सके जो मेरा पर्सपेक्टिव है या जो मेरा एक्सपीरियंस है वो कहाँ से डिराइव हो रहा है। मैंने अपनी जो स्कूलिंग स्टार्ट की थी वो एक गवर्नमेंट स्कूल से की थी। देन मैं ऐसे जो रिलीजियन बेस्ड स्कूल्स होते हैं उनमें पढ़ा हूँ, डिफरेंट रिलीजियंस के। बट एंड देन फिर मैं यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ दिल्ली आया, रामजस कॉलेज में, जिसमें मैं रामजस डिबेटिंग सोसाइटी का प्रेसिडेंट रहा। एक हमारे यहाँ पे सेल होता है करियर डेवलपमेंट सेल, वहां पे रहा, जहां पर हम काम करते हैं कि लोग जो बच्चे हैं रामदास कॉलेज के, उनको अपने करियर से रिलेटेड क्या इश्यूज आ रहे हैं। एंड देन वहां से मैंने कुछ चीजें पाई कि जो हमारे जो स्कूल इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है, जो मुझे पहले लगता था कि वो सिर्फ गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में वो इश्यूज हैं, या फिर जिस तरह के स्कूल से मैं आया हूँ वो उन स्कूल्स में वो इश्यूज है, वो एक्चुअली में हर तरह के स्कूल्स में, चाहे वो प्राइवेट हो, रूरल अर्बन एरिया में हो, रूरल एरिया में हो, हर तरह के स्कूल्स में वो इश्यूज एग्जिस्ट कर रहे हैं। एंड स्पेशली ऑब्वियसली गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स में यदि हम जाएं, या फिर जो स्कूल्स फंड्स पे चलते हैं, या फिर किसी फाउंडेशन के बेसिस पे चलते हैं, उनमें थोड़े से ज्यादा देखने को मिलते हैं, बट इश्यूज हर जगह एग्जिस्ट कर रहे हैं। एंड जब हम बात करते हैं इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर की, तो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के लिए जो कॉन्शियसनेस हमारी है, चाहे हमारी गवर्नमेंट की देखें या फिर हम लोग की खुद के देखें, वो कॉन्शियसनेस सिर्फ इतनी है कि बिल्डिंग के में हम क्या कर रहे हैं, हम किस प्रकार के क्लासरूम्स प्रोवाइड कर रहे हैं, या फिर किस प्रकार के स्विमिंग क्या यदि रूरल एरिया में तो उसमें स्विमिंग पूल्स हैं या नहीं है, स्मार्ट क्लासेस हैं या नहीं है। यदि थोड़े गांव वाले या रूरल एरिया में, तो हम सोचते हैं कि वहां पर कि किसी बच्चे को पेड़ के नीचे ना पढ़ना पड़े, या और उनके लिए एक प्रॉपर बिल्डिंग हो। लेकिन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर सिर्फ वहां तक नहीं होता। यदि हम हमारे बजट की बात करें, तो बजट हमेशा इस बात पर आधारित होता है कि हम किस प्रकार से बिल्डिंग्स प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं, किस प्रकार से अच्छे क्लासरूम्स प्रोवाइड कर सकते हैं। लेकिन इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में कुछ बहुत ही बेसिक चीजें हैं जो हर क्लासरूम में होनी चाहिए, वो हम मिस कर रहे हैं। क्योंकि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर का बेसिकली मतलब क्या है कि बेसिक फैसिलिटीज जो स्टूडेंट्स को मिलनी चाहिए। अब इन फैसिलिटीज में ऑब्वियसली क्लासरूम्स आते हैं, बिल्डिंग्स आती हैं, बट इनके अलावा कुछ बेसिक चीजें हैं जो हर उसमें होनी चाहिए, हर स्कूल्स में होनी चाहिए। जैसे कि स्टार्टिंग में गुरशीन ने बताया था कि मेंटल हेल्थ की क्या इंपॉर्टेंस है अभी, है ना। तो जब मेंटल हेल्थ की बात करते हैं, तो कितनी स्कूल्स ऐसी हैं जिनमें मेंटल हेल्थ काउंसलिंग होती है, चाहे वो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल हो या फिर स्मॉल टाउन्स की प्राइवेट स्कूल्स हो। कहीं पर भी ऐसा बहुत ज्यादा देखने को नहीं मिलता। जो एकदम आपकी टायर 1 की स्कूल्स है, वहीं पर आपको देखने को मिलेगा कि मेंटल हेल्थ काउंसलिंग होती है, डेडिकेटेड मेंटल हेल्थ काउंसलर्स है। यदि नेशनल, ये मैंने कुछ लिखा हुआ है डेटा के लिए, नेशनल मेंटल हेल्थ सर्वे इन्होंने किया था 2018 में, एंड इनके अकॉर्डिंग 7.3% स्कूल स्टूडेंट्स मेंटल हेल्थ डिसऑर्डर्स का सामना करते हैं। एंड मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज जैसे कि एंजाइटी हो गया या दूसरे इश्यूज हो गए, ऐसे 15 से 20% बच्चे हैं जिनको होता है। यानी कि हमारे 10 में से हर 2 बच्चा इन इश्यूज को फेस कर रहा है। तो यानी कि आप सोच सकते हैं कि जब आप एक स्कूल गोइंग स्टूडेंट हैं, जब आप स्कूल जा रहे हैं, तो आपके लिए मेंटल, यदि आपको एक मेंटल हेल्थ इश्यूज हो रहे हैं, तो आपकी वो प्रोडक्टिविटी को, आपके फ्यूचर को, आपके सराउंडिंग्स को किस प्रकार से वो कर सकता है। तो हमको यह बहुत ज्यादा जरूरी है कि जितने भी स्कूल्स हैं, चाहे वो एक छोटा स्कूल हो चाहे एक बड़ा स्कूल हो, वहां पर हमें डेडिकेटेड मेंटल हेल्थ काउंसलर्स होने चाहिए। उसके बाद मैं इस पे ज्यादा एम्फसाइज इसलिए नहीं करूँ क्योंकि गुरशीन ने काफी बता चुकी है कि मेंटल हेल्थ काउंसलिंग की या मेंटल हेल्थ की कितनी इंपॉर्टेंस है। आगे बात करें करियर काउंसलर्स। मैं साइंस बैकग्राउंड से आता हूँ, क्योंकि ऑल्दो मुझे ह्यूमैनिटीज में बहुत इंटरेस्ट है, मैंने डिबेटिंग भी की है। बट जब मैं अपना आगे जब हमको 10th के बाद 11th हमें कोई कोर्स परस्यू करना होता है, तो हमारे पेरेंट्स का या हमारे जो सराउंडिंग में जो लोग होते हैं, सीनियर्स होता है, उनका एक सिंपल क्वेश्चन होता है कि करोगे क्या ह्यूमैनिटीज लेकर के। लेकिन ऐसा नहीं कि ह्यूमैनिटीज में करियर का स्कोप नहीं है, पर एक्चुअल में जो हमारे जो चाहे टीचर्स हो चाहे पेरेंट्स हो, उनकी कॉन्शियसनेस इतनी नहीं है, या फिर हमने वो जो नॉलेज है वो वहां तक पहुंचा ही नहीं है। क्योंकि यदि करियर आपके लाइफ का बहुत ही इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट होता है, पर हम उनके पास वो नॉलेज ही नहीं पहुंचा पाए हैं कि किस प्रकार से कि आप अलग अलग करियर फील्ड में जा सकते हैं। लिंक्डइन के सर्वे के अकॉर्डिंग जो 70% इंडियन जो इंडियन यूथ है, वो अपने करियर फील्ड को लेकर डिससेटिस्फाइड है। ना सिर्फ अपने करियर जॉब को लेकर, करियर फील्ड को लेकर, कि यानी कि वो जिस फील्ड में है, वो उस फील्ड में रहना ही नहीं चाहते। ऐसा क्यों हो रहा है? क्योंकि जो हमारे जब हमको अपनी फील्ड चूज करनी होती है, वो फील्ड हमारी ना तो चॉइस की होती है, ना हमको सारे स्कोप्स मालूम। क्योंकि इस तरह के जो हम इस तरह की चीजों की कमी है। अब यदि जैसे इंडीड ने एक सर्वे किया था, उसके अकॉर्डिंग 85% जो बच्चे हैं जो अपने करियर चूज कर रहे होते हैं, तो वो एक अपने पेरेंट्स के प्रेशर में आकर के चूज करते हैं। तो इस तरह से आप समझ सकते हैं कि यदि 10 में से 8 या 9 बच्चे अपने पेरेंट्स के प्रेशर में आकर के कर रहे हैं, ना कि जो चीज उनको पसंद है। और दूसरी चीज, यदि उन 10 में से एक बच्चे की भी यदि हम बात को कंसीडर करें कि जो अपने खुद से चूज कर रहा है, क्या उसको सारे ऑप्शंस पता है, क्या वो सही क्या उसको सारे उसके फायदे नुकसान सारी चीजें पता है, इन चीजों की काफी कमी है। लेकिन और ये चीजें कैसे ठीक हो सकती हैं? हम कह देते हैं कि आज डिजिटल वर्ल्ड है, आप जाकर के देख सकते हैं, लेकिन उस चीज से वो केटर नहीं होगी। आपको डेडिकेटेडली अपने इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में इन चीजों को इंट्रोड्यूस करना होगा। आपको जो बच्चा आगे जाकर के लेना पड़ रहा है, जो उसका, क्योंकि उसका माइंडसेट डेवलप कहाँ से हो रहा है? उसका माइंडसेट अपने सराउंडिंग से डेवलप हो रहा है, उसके स्कूल से, उसके स्कूल टीचर से, उसके रिलेटिव से। तो यदि उसका जो एक माइंडसेट जो बन चुका है, हमको दिखता है कि ज्यादातर लोग गवर्नमेंट एग्जाम्स के लिए, आईआईटी जेईई इन लोगों में ही जाना चाहते हैं, क्योंकि वो एनवायरमेंट ऐसे क्रिएट हो गया। लेकिन यदि आपको इस एनवायरमेंट को ब्रेक करना है, तो आपको डेडिकेटेडली इसको इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में इंट्रोड्यूस करना पड़ेगा। इसके बाद आगे बात करते हैं तीसरी चीज की, जो इंपॉर्टेंट है वो है स्पोर्ट्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर। तो जो मैंने पहला पॉइंट बोला था कि किस प्रकार से मेंटल हेल्थ इंपॉर्टेंट है, उस चीज के लिए भी जरूरी है कि हम ऐसी चीजें इंट्रोड्यूस करें जैसे स्पोर्ट्स हो गया। अब जैसे मैंने बताया था, मैं जिन स्कूल से आता हूँ, तो वहां पर पे गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स, जब मैंने स्टार्ट किया था गवर्नमेंट स्कूल से किया था। गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में जो स्पोर्ट्स इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर है वो बहुत ही औसत स्तर पर है। लेकिन उस चीज को क्या इम्प्रूव किया जा सकता है? इम्प्रूव किया भी जा रहा है। उस चीज के लिए हम देखते हैं बजट्स में नए वो डाले जाते हैं, उसके लिए कैपिटल अलॉट किया जाता है। लेकिन वो कैपिटल इतना इनफ नहीं है। दूसरी चीज कि आप कैपिटल पर रिलाई नहीं कर सकते हैं, क्योंकि हमने देखा कि और जो बेयर मिनिमम चीजें हैं कि स्कूल की बिल्डिंग प्रोवाइड करना, उसी के लिए हमारे गवर्नमेंट के पास करंट सिनेरियो में इतना कैपिटल नहीं है। तो उसी को किस तरह से सही किया जा सकता है? जैसे मैं इनिशियली जब एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन से जुड़े हुए स्कूल में था, तो वो बहुत कम कैपिटल इन्वेस्ट करके भी इस चीज को बहुत अच्छे से केटर करते थे। वो कैसे करते थे कि उन्होंने एक ऐसा एनवायरनमेंट बनाया हुआ था। वो कोई अलग से डेडिकेटेड स्पोर्ट्स टीचर नहीं लगाते थे। वो उनका बस हर स्कूल में 800-900 बच्चे के स्कूल में एक पीटी टीचर होता था बस। लेकिन वो एक स्पोर्ट्स का एनवायरनमेंट कैसे क्रिएट करते थे? क्योंकि उनके हर एरिया में, हर एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट में 40 से 45 स्कूल्स थे। तो क्या करते थे वो ऐसे हर 10 हर मंथली या फिर हर क्वार्टरली कॉम्पिटिशन्स ऑर्गेनाइज करवाते थे। जब वो ऐसे कॉम्पिटिशन्स ऑर्गेनाइज करवाते हैं, तो बच्चे खुद से ही सीखने को लग जाते हैं। आपको हर स्पोर्ट्स के लिए एक टीचर अलॉट करने की जरूरत नहीं है। यदि आप एक कबड्डी का कॉम्पिटिशन ऐसे क्वार्टरली बेसिस पे यदि ऑर्गेनाइज करवा रहे हैं, तो बच्चे उसको सीखने लग जाएंगे। लेकिन आपको वो एनवायरनमेंट प्रोवाइड करना पड़ेगा जहां से वो प्लेटफॉर्म मिल। तो यहाँ पे जरूरी है कि जो हमारे जो गवर्नमेंट स्कूल्स हैं, या स्पेशली टायर 2 या टायर 3 स्कूल्स हैं, उनके लिए एक ऐसा स्पोर्ट्स एनवायरनमेंट क्रिएट किया जाए, या हमारे इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर में ऐसे कॉम्पिटिशन्स को इंट्रोड्यूस किया जाए जहां से बच्चे इस चीज के लिए हो। एंड फोर्थ और लास्ट पॉइंट जो मेरा है, वो है साइकोलॉजी को एज ए सब्जेक्ट इंट्रोड्यूस करना। वो क्यों जरूरी है? क्योंकि हम बात करते हैं कि जिससे हमारी जो कॉन्शियसनेस है, अगेन कॉन्शियसनेस मैं वर्ड यूज कर रहा हूँ, कि हमारी कॉन्शियसनेस है वो चीजों को लेकर के बढ़ रही है। लेकिन जैसे मैं यूनिवर्सिटी में गया, यूनिवर्सिटी में हमको एनवायरमेंटल स्टडीज एक कंपलसरी सब्जेक्ट पढ़ाया जाता है। जब हम छोटे होते हैं तो मोरालिटी कंपलसरी पढ़ाया जाता है। तो ऐसी जरूरी है कि साइकोलॉजी को भी पढ़ा जाए, ताकि क्योंकि हम समझ सके कि जो हम दूसरा कि हम हमारी मेंटेलिटी को समझ सके, कि जो हमारे इमोशंस है या जो हमारी थॉट प्रोसेस है, वो कहाँ से डिराइव हो रही है, क्या सही है क्या गलत है, हम जो चीजों को फेस कर रहे हैं वो कहाँ से आ रहा है। तो भले ही उसको एक एकेडमिक या करिकुलम की तरह ना पढ़ाने की जरूरी नहीं है, उसको एक एग्जाम वाला या पेपर बनाने की जरूरत नहीं है। लेकिन साइकोलॉजी को हर किसी क्या बोलते हैं, एक जो भी स्टूडेंट स्कूल गोइंग स्टूडेंट है, उसके करिकुलम में इंट्रोड्यूस करना चाहिए, उसको कंपलसरी करना चाहिए।
थैंक यू रवि, कई पैशनेट पॉइंट्स को रेज करने के लिए और अपना पर्सनल एग्जाम्पल के थ्रू हमें समझाने के लिए। समीक्षा, if you are ready, then you can go up next.
Yes, sure. Am I audible?
Yes, Samiksha.
All right, great. So, good evening, one and all. I am honored to be here today to discuss an issue that is critical for the future of our nation. That is basically the evaluation of the budget provisions for the child healthcare and nutrition. Now, ultimately, when we talk about this, what do we understand by the term budget? Right? It's a very economical term, is it? To try to understand it in very simplest terms, it talks about the estimated receipts, that is where is the money going to come from, and the estimated expenditure, that is where will this money be expended on, where will we, where will the government spend this on various, it could be defense mein kitna ja raha hai, agriculture mein kitna ja raha hai, on education how much you're spending. So essentially the budget lays that out, and all of this is estimated. It is for the upcoming fiscal year. Usually the fiscal year is from the 31st of March till the 1st of April of the next year. However, and the budget is usually presented in Feb, right? 1st of Feb. But this year we had two budgets that were presented. And that's only because we had the general elections this year. So in the month of Feb, the interim budget was presented, and that is essentially only important for the outgoing government. the government जिसका term end हो रहा होता है, and so that it's able to function well until a new government is formed, उसको लेकर interim budget होता है, and it caters only to the needs of that government. Once the elections are done and once a new government is elected, you essentially have the new government is there, so the budget is presented, right? So on the 23rd of July, the Nirmala Sitharaman, our finance minister, she presented the budget. Now, this is the budget that is important, and it talks about the allocations to various ministries. It talks about the demand for grants and the tax reforms. But essentially, why is this budget important for us? Why are we discussing this? That is only because, as us citizens, we are paying taxes, right? And we need to know where is this money going. Secondly, it's also important because this is the first budget of the newly elected government, and this will basically, lay out the chart as to how the government will proceed in the upcoming 5 years. So that's why it's very important. Now, coming to the budget, it's presented in the Lok Sabha first. That's the first step. Second, it's discussed in both the houses, and third step is very important. That is because the standing committees, they scrutinize the demand for grants by various ministries. For instance, let's take the health ministry. It can say that the ministry says that I require such and such funds for allocating it to such and such scheme. Let's say for Poshan Abhiyan, I require 30,000 crores. Now the committees, they scrutinize whether or not this is required. मतलब इतना money allot इनको करना है या नहीं करना है, कम कर सकते हैं, ज़्यादा कर सकते हैं. So all of that is scrutinized. And after that, a voting is done in the house, in both the houses, and then the thing is passed. So the union budget of 24-25, this is divided into four themes. That is employment, skilling, the middle class, and we have the women, right? So, and we have 9 priority sectors as well. So all of this, essentially, the union budget is formed on the ground of Vikasit Bharat till 2047, right? We aspire to become a developed nation by the year 2047. So now what's crucial to understand here is that the foundation of any thriving society, any developed nation, lies in the well-being of its citizens. And that brings us to the importance of healthcare, of nutrition. We can take the most basic example that, let's say you fall ill today and you don't have adequate food at home, you don't have adequate healthcare facilities around you. You won't be able to, let's say, and you have an exam to give tomorrow, and you won't be able to give that, of course, because if you fall sick, you can't, effectively, you can't be productive, you can't work well. And that is also essentially why in human resource development, health is given so much priority. And this has been recognized by our government as well, as is very evident in the amount that has been allocated to the healthcare industry ministry, which is about 90,659 crores. That is a very huge amount. Right. So under this budget, I'll be talking about four essential aspects. That is the Integrated Child Development Scheme, the Midday Meal Scheme, the National Health Mission, and the National Nutrition Mission. Right. So the Anganwadi scheme is something that comes under the ICDS, Integrated Child Development Scheme. 20,554 crore has been allocated to this, and these are Anganwadi centers are basically set up in rural areas to provide immunization, to provide supplementing the nutrition for children that are below the age of 6 years. So this is something that is really great to link the gap between bridge the gap between urban and rural divide. So a recent example under this by the government, a recent initiative has been the Poshan Tracker. What is that? We know that there lies a gap between the policy being implemented and it reaching the ultimate beneficiaries. Isme beneficiaries are the 6-year-old kids, right? So the portion tracker it's a way of digitally seeing whether or not they're receiving the nutrition that they require. Secondly, we have the National Nutrition Mission, which is the Poshan Abhiyan, right? This has been allocated 3,000 crore rupees. So the Poshan Abhiyan is ultimately the mission which aims to reduce stunting, which aims to reduce undernutrition among young children, women, and even adults and girls. And this is by taking a convergence approach as well as leveraging technology. Right. So under this, there is the campaign called the Pradhan Mantri, Poshan Maha, that is the nutrition month. So every year this happens in the month of September. For instance, last year in September, the government talked about this thing, millets, the importance of millets, that it is nutrition and it's also affordable. So that's almost like killing two birds with one stone, right? You get a lot of benefit out of it. So awareness is basically spread through this. Then we have the midday meal scheme. I won't be speaking much on this because previous speakers have already spoken on this, and I guess everyone is aware about midday meal scheme. And that is also it's one of the biggest achievement that everyone is aware of it, because throughout the country, each and every state has adopted this. Although certain there are loopholes that the quality of food is not as good, and there are a lot of cases of the food that is being distributed there. But apart from that, it has achieved certain great levels. For instance, recently the fortified rice has been introduced, which caters to macronutrients that will be given to the children through this. Lastly, we have the National Health Mission, which has a very broad ambit, and precisely why it has received 37,000 crores. Under this, we have the RMNCH plus A strategy, that is reproductive, maternal, newborn, child, and adolescent health. So this basically aims to provide affordable and quality healthcare to the most vulnerable sections of the society. And under this, we have the Prime Minister's scheme of Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Maitritva Abhiyan. So this offers antenatal, that is pre-pregnancy, checkups to pregnant women on the 9th of every month. So this helps in detecting the risks of high risk of pregnancy, and with the help of that, it contributes to better maternal and child health outcomes. So apart from that, we also know that despite significant budget allocations, still a lot of challenges do remain, right? And this includes, let's say, delays in the disbursement of the funds. कि fund allocate हो गया, but वो अभी तक distribute नहीं हुआ है जहाँ तक required है, right? And secondly, we have the personnel that is not trained well, and even the lack of infrastructure. But the government has been coming up with initiatives like the National Digital Health Mission. So that has been able to cater to some of these gaps, and has been creating a digital health ecosystem as well, which improves transparency, efficiency, and accountability in the healthcare delivery system. We also have a lot of telemedicine that has been coming up, and essentially this came up during the COVID, when the importance was understood that when you can't really go and physically get the medical services, it was digitally available to you, it was delivered to you. So e-sanjeevani telemedicine was something that came up, and one of the most recent example is by AIMS. They have developed a software that will cater to the diabetes for people in rural areas. So all you have to do is, the professionals, they have to feed in the information. Ki so and so are the symptoms. The machine, the software will do the diagnosis, and it will provide you with so and so medication is required. So it's essentially very effective. Now I won't take much of your time, and I'll be concluding here, because there is a time restraint, of course. So we can see that the union budget has been effectively, committed to this healthcare sector, which is very evident with the annual increase in the amount it's giving to the healthcare industry. Annually, 11% increase has been there, and from the last year budget, there has been a 13% increase. So that shows the government's commitment. Apart from that, I guess the commitment from each and every citizen is required for the ultimate, political participation. And without community effort, no scheme can be fulfilled. So I guess with that, I'd like to conclude. Thank you so much for being so patient.
Thank you so much, Sameeksha, for your passionate insights on children and how they should be included in the budget more often than not. Up next, we have a speaker who will be speaking on social security and child welfare schemes. Varnas is a student of Shriram College of Commerce, University of Delhi. Varnas, you're up.
So, first of all, good evening to everyone who is present here and who is watching this stream. And also, a huge shout out to Sarkari School for organizing this event. So, my name is Varnas, and I'm a Bachelor of Commerce student at Sri Ram College of Commerce. So, today I'm going to talk about the social security schemes that is being introduced in the Union Budget 2024. But first, I would like to talk about the basic issues that is in the Indian education system, and that is keeping the child in the poverty in India. So, मैं I'm going to speak the next part in the Hindi, so I hope everyone get this. So, मैंने भी अपनी एजुकेशन, जैसे कि रवि शर्मा बता रहे थे कि उन्होंने सरकारी स्कूल से स्टार्ट करी, तो मैंने भी अपनी एजुकेशन सरकारी स्कूल से स्टार्ट करी थी. बट व्हेन आई वाज इन थर्ड एंड so my parents shifted me to the CBSE school. But there has been a various issues that I've seen in the Sarkari schools even today, and I'm talking to the 10 years before when I was in second class. So मैं देखता हूँ कि बच्चे अभी भी जो स्कूल जाना पसंद नहीं करते, क्योंकि वहाँ पे ऐसा एनवायरनमेंट नहीं होता कि वो जो वहाँ पे जाना पसंद करे. So instead of focusing on the numbers today, we're going to talk about how to create a right mindset for the students and for the parents and in the schools and the universities. So people should be more encouraged to go to the college and to the schools. So first, we are going to talk about, there is one scheme that I've read in the budget. So the pre-matric scholarship has been, for minority has been reduced from 430 crore to 326, which is to increase the number of students so they pursue the matric education. So I think it is one plus point. But coming back to the ones that have seen issues in the Sarkari schools. So first, there is no discipline in the Sarkari schools, and that is because I know this because I'm a village. I reside in a village in a very local. I live in a very local area in my country. Okay, so is my network issue all right, guys? Because hello,
You're
Yes, yes, you
audible,
are all.
Varnas. You can go ahead.
hello, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, there is no zero network is causing some issues on my side. So I will now try to keep my part short. So first of all, I'll cut that part. I'll just talk to the what I've seen in the budget because there is some network maintenance break on. So first, we are going to talk about the only scheme that has been introduced for the children in the budget 2024 is the NPS Vatsalya Yojana. So it is a very welcome a scheme by the CEOs of Bal Raksha Bharat NGO, Sudarshan Suchi. He welcomes this Yojana. And I also think it is a very good Yojana as parents are incentivized to contribute a small portion into the retirement savings plan for their children. And when the children attains majority, he can convert that NPS into a non-NPS plan. So that is a very big point for creating social security for the children of India. But other than this, there has no been major such initiatives that has been introduced in the Union Budget of 2024 that focus only on the children of India. As children is the backbone of the country, so in order to make India Viksit Bharat by 2047, Indian government should focus more on the children and on the primary and secondary education and college education of the student. Another we have seen in the child welfare scheme, uh, there has been an allocation of 1,09,920 crores, uh, which has been increased from last year's 1,04 1,179 crore rupees, which has not been a very significant increase as it's only a 5% increase total in the child welfare. And the inflation is more than the given percentage that it increase. So in the if you see the real effect of this, there has not been any much major increase in the budget for the child welfare schemes. And another I've seen is that there has been a introduction of increase in the expenditure in the primary education. So that is one very plus, as there has been a 50% increase in the PM Schools for Rising India program. So that is amounts to something around 6,000 crores. So that is also very big um, I would say initiative for the country. So other than these incentives, I don't think that there has been much introduced in the budget 2024 for improving the conditions of children in India. So, as I was starting, so instead of focusing on these numbers, as resources are very scarce in India, as there is a population of 1.4 billion, 1.4 billion in the country, and as the seventh largest nation by size, so India is not a very big country to hold such a large amount of population. So, India should rather focus on more abstract nature of this to improve the child poverty and conditions of uh, excuse me, sorry. So to improve the financial conditions of the students in India. Okay, that's all from my side.
Thank you, Varn. There were network interruptions, but you were phenomenal for sharing your own experience at Sarkari schools and also for your distinctive insights on how the government is spending more on primary schools. However, the results are not as fruitful as we would like to be. Uh, Up next, we have Again, a very young high school graduate who will be starting college next month, Saksham Handa, and he has chosen to speak on child protection and welfare. Saksham, you're up.
Thank you, Kaushiki. Am I audible?
Yes, you're audible and visible.
Thank you. It is very well said that children are the future of our nation, and to protect them, it is a duty and not our choice. Good evening to one and all present. To- Today, I would like to address a topic of paramount importance: child protection and welfare through the lens of Indian government's 2024 budget. As we stand at the crossroads of policy implementation and societal impact, it is crucial to evaluate how well our financial commitments translate into tangible benefits for the children. The future of a nation is inextricably linked to the well being of its children. Child protection and welfare are not mere social issues, they are fundamental to the progress and prosperity of a nation. Today, I want to dwell into the critical role of the budget in safeguarding the children. Every day, countless children in India face the harsh realities of exploitation, abuse, and neglect. According to the recent estimates, over 4.5 million children in our country are at risk. This stark reality underscores the urgent need for robust and effective child protection measures. The 2024 budget provides a significant opportunity to address these issues and make a meaningful difference in the life of these young citizens. While strides have been made, there is still much to be done to address the pressing challenges of child labor, trafficking, and abuse. The Indian government has made notable budgetary commitments this year to enhance the child protection. The Integrated Child Protection Scheme is a part of Mission Vatsalya scheme. In the Union Budget 2024 to 25, the Mission Vatsalya was allocated rupees 1,472 crore rupees. This is almost the same allocation as the previous year. While the exact breakdown of this allocation specifically is not publicly detailed, but it is a significant component of Mission Vatsalya, which focuses on child protection services and welfare. The budget allocation, particularly for programs like these, has led to significant improvements in our country. First of all, it has enhanced the child protection. The expansion of child protection units and the strategic focus on the Mission Vatsalya has greatly improved the safety and rehabilitation of children. It has also reduced the anti-trafficking initiatives and have bolstered, leading to more effective prevention efforts and have better rehabilitation for rescued children. However, there are certain challenges that still remain. Regional disparities are there. Despite the increased funding by the government, resource distribution still lacks, and it is uneven in villages and other rural areas. Secondly, there is an implementation hurdle also. Bureaucratic delays and coordination issues continue to hinder the full potential of these budgetary allocations. My recommendation and opinion for enhanced effectiveness: firstly, the government can do target allocation, in which they can allocate a portion of funds which is directed to the just the high risk regions where the child protection services are most needed in our country. Secondly, they can use strengthened coordination. They can improve the overall collaboration between the government agencies and the NGOs involved in the child welfare to ensure the efficient use of funds and avoid the wastage and duplication of efforts. Thirdly, rigorous monitoring is required, regular audits and evaluations to assess the impact of the funded programs and ensure that Mission Vatsalya and other initiatives meet their intended goals. The Ministry of Women and Child Development was allocated rupees 26,000 crore this year in the union budget. This represents a marginal increase of 2.5% as compared to the previous year's revised allocation. Child welfare programs is a both testament to the government's recognition of the importance of safeguarding the children and a necessary response to the ongoing challenges that they face. In conclusion, I would like to say that the Budget 2024 represents a critical investment in the children's future program like Mission Vatsalya, which are important in our efforts to protect and uplift the vulnerable children. However, the success of these initiatives hinges on effective implementation, targeted funding, and continuous monitoring. Investing in the protection and welfare of the children is not just an expenditure for a country, it is an investment in the nation's future. By providing the children with a safe, nurturing, and empowering environment, we are building a stronger, more prosperous, and equitable India. Let us work together to create a society where every children has the opportunity to reach their full potential. Let us make child protection welfare a national priority. Let us seize the opportunity to ensure that every child in India is protected and nurtured. With the right focus and commitment, we can create a safer, brighter future for the next generation. Thank you.
Thanks, Saksham. Great points raised regarding implementation as well as recommendations to protect our children. I can see Ananya, who was unable to speak before, is here now. Ananya is a student of Lady Shriram College of Women, University of Delhi, and will be speaking on early childhood development. Ananya Syngal, the floor is yours.
Yeah, am I audible and visible?
Yes, Ananya, you are.
I want to present. Can I do that?
Yes, you can.
Yeah, just this. Okay. Yeah. Uh, is it visible?
No, Ananya.
Is it not?
No.
I'll just do it again. Is it visible now?
Yep, now it's visible. You can go ahead.
Yeah. So hi everybody, I'm Ananya Syngal as introduced by the moderators. I'm a second year BA program student from Lady Shriram College for Women. So I think the audience must have been exhausted after hearing a lot of presentations. So I'll try to make sure that I cover it quickly, and I have tried to make my presentation which is not digit heavy, because when we talk about budget, there are a lot of digits that we talk about, and according to my personal opinion, it gets lot overwhelming when you see a lot of budgets on digits on your screen. So I've tried to keep it less digits, and then the narrative that I would want to convey through my presentation is that of importance of early childhood education, and how it is the foundation of overall education that you gain in your lifetime. So before starting off with the presentation, I would just like to make a little remark here, that whenever we talk about budget, especially this year, that a lot of reforms and changes have been made, we usually think of middle class people, and they condemning our finance minister Nirmala Sitharaman because of the lot of taxes that have been imposed on them. But majority of times people fail to look at the allocation of education in the budget, and that is very ironic, because education is the main means through which we can gain skills and knowledge, which can aid us to earn money in the future. So I think talking about education is very important in budget as a whole itself. So going further, these are as introduced by the moderator as well. So I'll be talking about early childhood development, which will also include funding for early childhood education and development programs, and its impact on preschool education and readiness for formal schooling. It will include four parts. First is current state of ECD funding, importance of funding for ECE, impact of ECE funding on school readiness, and finally challenges and gaps in current funding. So before going further, I would really like to talk about and really like to define as to what is early childhood education or early childhood development. As the term itself, conveys and defines, it is very easy to understand. It is teaching of children right from their birth up to 8 years, or essentially we can count it as grade up till grade 3. So for example, children studying from their pre-KG up till grade 3, so that is counted as early childhood education. And the narrative that I will carry throughout my presentation is that of importance of this education for their overall education in the life. So going further, so talking about current state of early childhood development funding. So in the budget that was presented by the Ministry of Finance in the last month, they allocated a total of rupees 1.2 lakh crore to the Ministry of Education. Now, Ministry of Education has two parts to it further, and that is how they have divided their budget into two parts. First is Department of School Education and Literacy, which has been allocated rupees 73,000 crore, which is uh, 61% of the total budget allocation to the MOE. The second part is the Department of Higher Education, which has been allocated 39% or 47,000 crores. So as you can also see on the pie chart that I've put alongside the data. So also just to make a remark here, all the data that I've presented, I've used it. I have put it from PRS Legislative Research, which always uses the official and original data. So talking about the pie chart. So in the pie chart, you can see so this is an allocation and division of the budget which has gone to the Department of School Education and Literacy, because that is something we will be talking about today in my presentation. So most of the allocation to Department of School Education has gone to Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan, which is approximately 52.6%. Then comes PM portion 17.5%. Then comes autonomous bodies 21.6%, and then finally PM Shri, which has been allocated 8.2% of 73,000 crores. All right. So discussing these three themes further, because they are the key stepping stones uh, in our thing. So as you can also see here, that school education and literacy has been given much more allocation than higher education. So why do you think so it has happened? So it is very important to establish a very strong foundation and base right from the beginning and right from the early childhood for children. Because if that base is not strong, you cannot have your higher education in a very comprehensive manner, right? So to go up the ladder, the first step needs to be strong, right? So that is why the government has rightly focused on the early childhood education, because that is how you will be building your base, and that is how you will go up the ladder and attain higher education in the future for yourself. So again, coming back to the schemes that I have put here in the pie chart. So first is Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. According to my opinion, government has worked really hard to make a very comprehensive scheme, because India, if you see, India was lacking behind in education on a lot of terms. But I think with coming up of Nipun Bharat mission, uh, coming up of national education policy, a lot of a lot of improvements have been made. And also talking about, I'm just like diverting from the topic a little bit, but I would also want to tell the audience as to why did I choose this particular topic. And that is because I have been very lucky to intern at two great organization. First is Central Square Foundation, which is directly working with the Ministry of Education and improving the quality of education. They are working in the sector of foundational literacy and numeracy and early childhood development. So I have got a lot of policy insights, and I have understood as to why is it important to build your base strong. And secondly, I've also interned at Pehchan the Street School, which is an organization working towards teaching the underprivileged children. So I've gone to underprivileged areas and I've taught them, and I've understood as to what issues do these kids, underprivileged kids, face when in the sector of education. So that is why I chose to speak on this topic. Now coming back onto the schemes, Samagra Shiksha Abhiyan. So mainly, so there are a lot of pointers to it, but I've just included the main ones. So first is emphasis on improvement of learning outcomes and upgrading school infrastructure, because that is where we have lagged a lot of times before. Enhanced capacity building of teachers, because they are the ones who need to make sure that kids are learning, they are attaining education, and they are attaining quality education. The third is the commitment to their motto sabko shiksha achhi shiksha, ensuring the good quality of education. Second is Pradhan Mantri Poshan Shakti Nirman. I think a lot of people have talked about it earlier as well, so I need not delve into it much. The PM Poshan scheme is mainly talking about the midday meal scheme, which is guaranteeing nutritious meals to students in elementary classes. Going to the last one, which is PM PMSHRI, or the long form of it is Schools for Rising India, which is that schools a lot. So some 14,000 schools all over India will be selected by the government, and they will be linked to the local entrepreneurial system and provide students access to counseling and cutting edge technology. Because I think if in if in this age, and if in today's age, especially after COVID, if you're not making the right use of technology, you will be really lacking backwards. So I think that is where the government is also trying to focus. Going further, so I think, as I told you, the narrative that I'm carrying, importance of funding for early childhood education. Why at all, besides building a strong foundation, do we need to focus on early childhood education so much? So I think the first thing is that when you are a kid, when you are studying in maybe first standard or maybe even lower than that, LKG, UKG, critical period of brain development, right? So and during that period of time, your lifelong learning happens, your health, your health takes place, and then your brain takes a proper shape. So imagine if you won't have played those games with your peers, you won't have engaged with your peers while learning, while learning alphabets, or while learning numbers, would you have been where you are right now? Because that is a very critical and crucial period for brain development, because that is when the kid steps out of his or her family. That is when kids learn and kids interact with somebody who is not related to them. Kids interact with their elders, which are their teachers, and to their peers. So a lot of comprehensive and critical brain development happens. And if this is missed, and you cannot imagine yourself at 10 years old stepping outside of your house for the first time, that will be very weird and will not be will not be good for your mental and overall well-being. Second is school readiness and academic success, which I've already talked about before, that it builds a lot of early childhood education, it builds the strong foundation and base, right? So it is very important for you. It helps you, it helps you gain success in the higher education as well. The third and the most important point, social and emotional development. So again, which is also related to the first point. So if you're missing out on that period, missing out on the period of ECE, your emotional learning will not take place, right? You will be building resilience, you will be building positive relations with your adults and peers. So I think this was largely about the importance of funding for ECE, and I've tried my best to explain through these 3 pointers. Coming on to the next thing, impact of ECE funding on school readiness. Why should the government be spending 61% of 73,000 crores on this particular sector, right? First is access to quality programs. Of course, there will be a lot. If you are increasing your funding, if you're increasing the amount of money that is going into this sector, there will be much more enrollment. A lot of kids do not go to school, but if you're increasing the funding, it is very highly likely that kids start going to school and start attaining education instead of working to earn money, right? So, and the second one is that there will be less number of barriers. So one third of India's children go to private schools, but the others cannot afford it because of high tuition fees, transportation, the background that they come from. So access to quality programs will take place if you increase the funding. Second is improved educational quality. So when you increase the funding, you will be spending a lot of the government will be spending a good amount of money on training the teachers, on on buying the material that is necessary, on buying the resources. The teachers will be qualified and they will be better suited to teach the kids. Second is curriculum development, which will be tailored to developmental needs of the young children, which is very important. So if the curriculum which is being used to teach the kids is not tailored to their needs, it will be of no use. So when you increase the funding, that will go up proportionally. The third and the final point is enhanced learning environments, right? So not just it will not just it will not just be the teachers who will be who it is not just the qualified teachers who will be appointed, but the environment will also improve, right? The environment, their surroundings will become that of learning, where you can learn, and there will
Ananya,
be a lot of
Great
Yeah,
points raised, but we have a time constraint. So can you please start rounding off your speech towards
yeah, yeah,
your
yeah.
conclusion?
Yeah, that's the last thing. So yeah, so conclude. Just giving out my conclusion. So there are just two, three recommendations that I would want to make. So as I told earlier, that education plays an important role in helping you to earn money, but just a meager 21% of the budget has been given to education. But according to my opinion, the percentage should be increased. Secondly, the quality of Indian education is not that great when compared to other countries. So, what I think the government should really take inspiration from uh, other models of education across the world. And I think one remark that I would like to make here is that in countries like London, uh, parents prefer to send their children to public schools over private schools because that is where the quality is better. So I think that should also be one of the goals of the Indian government. And yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Ananya, for structuring your speech so beautifully and also for being very thorough with your arguments. Moving on, our next speaker of the day is Avni Chawla. She's a student of Miranda House, University of Delhi, and she'll be enlightening us on special needs education. Avni, you're up.
Um, Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you're audible.
Hello, am I audible? Right, okay. So, good evening, everyone. I am Anvi. I am an economic honors student, an upcoming second year in Miranda House, as I was introduced. So, I'll share my opinion on children with special needs or children with disabilities and the budgetary allocations for that, the policy changes that the government introduced. I'll structure my speech into two parts. One, what the budget has allocated, what are the policies that the government introduced, and second part, what are the stakeholder reactions and my personal opinions on these budgetary allocations and these policy changes, and whether or not these will fructify into actually achieving the targets that were set. So the first thing that I'd like to start with is that the government provides scholarships to students who wish to pursue higher education but are disabled. So the government provides these scholarships for the students so that they're able to access quality education. So this word access to quality education would come up repeatedly in my speech because that's what I'll talk about. However, the previous fiscal year, the government had an allocation of 155 crore for this scholarship, but this was reduced to 142 crore this year. So while the percentage of decrease was less, it still was a reduction of 13 crore. That was one. Second, that the Center for Disability Sports received an allocation of 76 crore the previous year. However, this was reduced to 25 crore this year, which in percentage terms is a very big reduction. It's about a 67% reduction of the allocation to the Center for Disability Sports. Three, the government currently has 700 institutes or centers for sign language teaching to people and to students who cannot speak or cannot hear. This is a very small proportion compared to a country that has a population of about 25 lakhs, which cannot hear or speak. So a lot of numbers here, but that is the truth. This is a very small proportion of the number of people who actually need these services. This was what the budget allocated. This was what the policies are. Now the stakeholder reactions. So the government disability right organizations actually wanted an allocation of 5%. The budget allocates 5% of its revenue towards people who have disabilities. It may be towards employment, towards institutions, towards educational institutions, etc. However, this number currently stands at 0.027%. That means it is a very, very small proportion of a country where ideally the number of where the representation of the people who are disabled in whatever way should be more. So that's one. Second, that children, now talking about the stakeholder reaction to this reduction in scholarships. So children with additional needs require additional financial needs as well. They would require sophisticated equipment, maybe for transportation, maybe for speaking, maybe for hearing, maybe for writing, maybe for seeing. When a scholarship is given to them, this reduces the financial burden that the families have to bear to actually educate these children. However, now that the scholarship allocations have been removed, it means lesser number of people will actually be able to avail of these scholarships, which means that the financial burden on these families will ultimately increase. This, I believe, was a major misstep by the government, along with the reduction in, along with the reduction in the allocation for Center for Disability Sports. These two were major missteps by the government. The government budget has been remarkable, not from a taxation perspective at least, but in from the industry perspective. Education sector, healthcare sector, energy, every sector has been allocated its fair share of revenue. However, I believe that the representation of disabled students, disabled people in the country remains largely, they are largely unrepresented. So what are so the reason for this, why did the government do it in the first place? It was because when the government allocated a very large amount for the representation of disabled people and students in the country, it did not reach the desired targets, which means that the government was under the impression that this money was underspent, which meant that this money was not needed at all by the sector or by the strata of the society. The government was under this impression. However, it is not so, because for a country with so many people who require special needs, who require special equipments, um, 155 crore or 76 crores can never be less. These numbers, these allocations were fairly required. However, they were underspent, which led the government to believe that it was not required, which is why these reductions have been made. So, in my personal opinion, what is the solution to this? The solution to this is that we build the capacity within the government to implement these programs, to implement these policies in a better way. So, it should be compulsory for government, let alone government, even private colleges, private schools, private institutions, every educational institution in the country, government or private, to have ramps for people who may not be able to climb stairs or maybe escalators. Two, they should have exam writers for people who are visually impaired, so that families do not have to undertake the burden of finding exam writers for their children. Three, they should have scribe writing material and braille writing material, again, for people who require them, who want to avail these services but cannot, maybe because the institution does not provide it, maybe because the facilities do not exist in the first place. So from what I think, the reality of disability and disabled students in the country is largely absent from the budgetary allocations and from the policy changes. However, we need the government to implement these policies better, so that we're able to actually see the results and these people are able to avail these services. So that's it from my side. I'll conclude it. I'd like to keep it short. That's it from my side. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Avni, for stating the various aspects of special needs education and also for pointing out the gaps in our education system. Up next, we have Surya Pratap Singh from ABV, India Institute of Information Technology and Management. He has chosen to share his insights on digital learning and technology integration. Surya, you're up.
Thank you, Kaushiki. So, hello everyone. I am Surya Pratap Singh from Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh. So, I'm honored to be here today. I'll be representing the youth perspective on a topic very crucial for the future of our education system, that is digital learning and technology integration. So, I'll be addressing budget allocations for digital learning tools, how they will impact the online education accessibility and address the digital divide. So before delving into the budget allocations, I'll briefly discuss the current landscape. The COVID-19 pandemic has accelerated the adoption of digital learning across the globe. However, it has also highlighted uh, the digital divide that exists within our society. According to UNICEF, more than two-thirds of the children globally were unable to access online learning during the school closures during lockdown. And in India, this divide is even more pronounced. As per the National Sample Survey Organization, 24% of rural Indian households have internet access compared to 66% penetration in cities. The Union Budget of 2024 has made notable provisions for digital learning, and I'll highlight three crucial ones. Firstly, 10,000 crores allocated for improving digital infrastructure in school, including high-speed internet and providing digital devices to students. Also, to expand programs like PM eVidya initiative and Digital India program. Secondly, 1500 crores allocated for teacher training programs for improving digital pedagogy, effective use of technology in classrooms, and also improving and expanding programs like Diksha, which is a digital infrastructure for knowledge sharing, and Nishtha, which is national initiative for school heads and teachers' holistic advancement. Thirdly, 2000 crores allocated for the development of digital content to provide learning materials and customized learning experiences through the platforms like Swayam and ePathshala. Now, analyzing the impact on students of these budgetary allocations. Of course, this will help in bridging the digital divide that exists by providing digital devices and internet connectivity. Students from undeserved and rural communities will have better access to education. Empowering teachers, equipping them with technology skills and tools will help them effectively integrate tech into the teaching system, and it will definitely enhance the learning experiences of the children through improved digital infra and high quality content. But there are still some challenges, and my recommendations for the same. I would just highlight the two major ones. Firstly, the implementation and monitoring of these schemes. Like effective implementation monitoring of these schemes are really crucial, and we need to ensure that these funds, the allocated funds, are utilized efficiently and they reach the intended beneficiary. Secondly, the digital literacy. Alongside providing digital tools, it is essential to focus on digital literacy programs for both students and their parents as well. The same like Diksha and Nista, which are already existing for teachers, there should be for students and parents as well. It will help to maximize the benefits of digital learning, and a great ecosystem can be built. In conclusion, I'll just say that the Indian Union budget has laid a strong foundation for integrating digital learning and technology into our education system. As youth, we have a critical role to play in ensuring that these initiatives are implemented efficiently and no child is left behind in the digital age. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you, Surya. Your recommendations of effective implementation and digital literacy are indeed the need of the hour. Finally, in the last leg of our event today, we have our last speaker, Ishaan Shahabadi, who is a student of St. Stephen's College, University of Delhi, and will be enlightening us on public awareness and advocacy. Ishaan, the floor is yours.
Hello, greetings everyone. Good evening, panel. Am I audible?
Yes, Ishaan.
Yes, so being the last speaker in the sequence of events, I'm reminded of this particular quote. So it goes like, today I feel as if I am Henry VIII's last wife. I pretty much know what's expected of me, not sure how to do it any differently. So beginning the conversation with a very light tone, I'd like to now move attention to things that perhaps could have been incorporated in this year's budget but were left out. Since my domain, the domain that I have particularly chosen to speak about is public awareness. One of these sub clauses within public awareness, I'd say, is educating the people about not just what is in the budget, but also about what has been left out. Um, there are lots of examples that I can perhaps start with. One of them being that just recently, uh, we've seen a lot of mishaps around in the country. We see that no doubt, no matter what amount of money that is allocated for a particular project or a particular policy or a scheme, we still see that the on ground level implementation of that particular scheme is not very optimal. We see that the top down strategy of having this drip sort of a system of distributing funds among governmental bodies, among even specially set up commissions for advocating certain causes, is not being used optimally. So I'd like to start this conversation by ascertaining what the definition of children is. So there are obviously multiple debates within this context. So we can argue that perhaps there is not a fixed or a set definition to what a child is or what children are. Uh, One example of such could be taken perhaps from the Constitution itself, the Article 326, which allocates universal adult franchise to all Indians aged above 18. I mean, does that define what children are? Is it just people below the age of 18 who are defined as children, or could it be me, could it be you, could it be any college student, is it a middle-aged person? So these are things that perhaps we need to ascertain before we talk about more specific things. Let's say, for instance, let's quote an example. So recently, in Delhi, we had a huge mishap of waterlogging, which in the old Rajendra Nagar area, which led to the death of a few UPSC aspirants inside the basement of a coaching center. So are those people, are those aspirants not the children of not the children of the nation's mothers or fathers or parents? So this is something that we'll have to obviously demarcate and discuss upon. The things that perhaps we can allocate as much amount of money as we can in the budget, but if things aren't working out on the ground, if we are still having certain mishaps, for instance, let's say the falling down of the collapse of the IGI airport roof. It's an international level airport, highly accredited, but we see it led to the death of a single cab driver when the roof came tumbling down. We see that the waterlogging case in Delhi, in old Rajendra Nagar area, it led to the death of a few UPSC aspirants. The drainage master plan of Delhi hasn't been changed since 1976, and apparently the government isn't making any efforts to work on that. Rather, the focus has been much more on whether the preamble has been included in the books of children or not. So most certainly that is a crucial and a critical issue about the very philosophy of our constitution being excluded from academic textbooks. But if our own children do not feel safe when attending coaching classes, when attending tuitions, when attending classes at educational institutions, then I feel there is no point of even having the constitution in existence if it cannot be enforced, if its ideals cannot be preserved and protected. And should the fundamental duties of the government and the citizen just remain as a dead letter, then it would make no sense to even have them in the first place. So they are there, they are present in part 4 of the constitution for a particular reason. They are there to be talked upon, they are there to be discussed, they are there to be enforced. Now coming to the budget, we see that 1 lakh crore rupees has been allotted for research and development. It's a financing pool where lots of different investors could pool their money in and invest on some certain research activities, fund some certain research projects that could aid certain different social causes. What this will particularly do is that it's sort of saying that the state is moving away from state-sponsored research in a way, and is handing over the reins to the private sector. So having this sort of an arrangement, no doubt, could be beneficial. It could attract a lot of investment. But then again, private investors, they're not investing their money in just for the sake of doing something morally or ethically good. They do expect some kind of returns in exchange, and therefore the research, the privately funded research, it's just going to be centered around some certain particular domains that that particular investing company, that particular trust is going to be focusing on. When we talk about the state of governmental schools in this country, the educational institutions that are present in the country that are run by the state, we'll have to take into account the very portfolios of the ministers themselves. So again, it's not just about the ministers that are present with the ruling party, but also in the opposition. So we see our honorable external affairs minister, Dr. Subramaniam Jayashankar. No doubt he's doing a bona fide job at the international level. He is being idolized by a lot of people in India. He has acclaimed some sort of reputation. He has increased the number of aspirants wanting to join the Indian Foreign Service, a service that was earlier not even very well known as of recent trends. So, but again, we'll have to see that the kind of Viksit Bharat that Dr. Jaishankar and his ruling coalition is promising by 2047, it most certainly does have a domain around increasing the capacity of state educational institutions, that are governmental schools and governmental colleges. So what is happening is that Dr. Jaishankar's very own son, Dhruv Jaishankar, has taken up US citizenship, and Dr. Jaishankar's own son, Dhruv Jaishankar, he was studying in the US for a very long time and is now working there. So when the members of the ruling party, when your own ministers, they cannot put this faith into the country themselves, when they cannot trust the governmental educational systems for their own children, how can we expect the normal citizen, the taxpayer, to be able to put his or her trust for the future of his or her children in a governmentally funded state institution? We see the examples of Jyotiraditya Scindia, the Honorable Minister for Communications, who again himself did his education from Rollins College and has sent his own children to Yale, to Harvard, to Wharton. So most certainly the kind of claims that are being made by these dignitaries at the national level about how they are going to alleviate the grievances of people when it comes to educational institutions, about how they are going to, let's say, rectify the kind of shortcomings that are present within our own educational institutions, that might be all just silly rhetoric and might not have any grounds for some actually justifiable concern. Uh, that being set aside, instead of having discussions on religious orthodoxy, on the inclusion or exclusion of a certain document in academic textbooks, we should have more discussions. The public should be made more aware about the actual persisting problems in Indian society. We pay a 30% of income tax. We're paying 18% GST. We're paying cess. We're paying all kinds of different taxes that I recently read in the newspaper that are about half the amount of what the UK, what the people in the United Kingdom they're paying. So, and then the kind of services that we get back in return from the government itself, it's very disappointing. This needs to be rectified as soon as possible. And again, I read this in a survey by Alternative for Democracy. So they are an NGO who usually conduct these periodical surveys. What they have ascertained is that there is a clear injustice when it comes to the tax distribution among the center to the states. So when the center hands out money to the states, it's like, for instance, Tamil Nadu. Tamil Nadu is getting back 29 paise to the 1 rupee they're paying in taxes. And on the same hand, Bihar is getting 7 rupees for the 1 rupee they're paying. So that's not, talking about how this state is getting more money than me or how this state is getting less money than me. That is not the focus of concern here. What the concern that I'm targeting here is that states that have shown consistent economic progress, states that have actually used the funds for public good, they should be incentivized. They should be handed over of their fair share of money, if not more, so that they can continue with their existing forms of development and increase their gross domestic product output. If we are investing money in a lost cause, if we are investing money in places where perhaps a rupee invested is 10 rupees is 10 paisa reached at the ground level, wherein the 90 paisa has been consumed by the administrative bureaucracy, obviously in the name of corruption. That is something that we should be punished, and that is something that we should look into. That is most certainly something that governmental organizations avoid. That is something that the administrative machinery themselves avoid. And the irony here is that the UPSC aspirants who died in the waterlogging crisis at Old Rajendra Nagar, they were themselves preparing to be a part of this system, to be a part of this particular administration that is innately and intrinsically corrupt and is just too very power driven, is just drunk on this alcohol that is power. So we need to rectify all of these issues. We need to again ensure that anti-corruption bureaus are not corrupt themselves, and we need to make sure that policies that we are implementing, the budget that we're allocating, is actually being used on the ground. So with that, I'd like to conclude my discussion. I'd like to thank Sarkari School for allowing me this opportunity to speak, and yeah, that will be all from my side.
Thank you, Ishaan, for calling out the implementation woes in our country in view of the UPSC Academy issue and other institutions as well, and the need to inculcate public awareness to demand accountability from our lawmakers. We appreciate that.
With that, we have come to the end of our event, Children in Budget 2024, the Youth Perspective. As we conclude today's event, I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to all our speakers for their thought provoking insights and attentive participation. The discussions we have had today highlight the critical importance of prioritizing children's needs in our national budget, from mental health to education, and from skill development to child protection. Each topic we have explored is a vital component of building a brighter future for the next generation. It is evident that the youth have a powerful voice, and today that voice has contributed meaningfully to the national conversation on child welfare and education. Your ideas and perspectives can help shape policies that will affect millions of lives. Let's carry forward the momentum generated today and continue advocating for well being and development of children across our nation. Thank you once again for your contributions and for making this event a resounding success. We hope to see you at future discussions and initiatives as we work together to build a better future for our children. I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Mr. Abhishek Ranjan sir for your unwavering support. Thank you, Bani, for your immense contributions for making this event a success. And thank you to my co moderator, Arjun, for your cooperation and contributions. Thank you all. You may now leave the meeting. Have a nice evening. Thank you again.
Thank you all.
Thank you, everyone. Good evening.